Hey, what's going on? You know who it is, you know what it is. All right, man. I want to respond to Dream Chasing Box's video about Andre Ward and Andre Ward's interview with Fight Hype. Look, Andre Ward is entitled to his opinion. He briefly spoke out on the Floyd Mayweather thing, and I guess he sort of disagreed with what Floyd was saying. Look, I noticed Andre Ward don't feel comfortable talking about this whole race thing based off the fact that possibly it could be because he's biracial, so he tries not to alienate, his black heritage along with his white heritage. So I kind of understand where Andre Ward is coming from with that. I guess he doesn't feel comfortable talking about that. I've noticed in quite a few interviews, well, at least three, that Andre Ward, he just don't like talking about this race shit. I mean, you know what? That's okay. I give him a pass for that. That's why you got guys like me and other people on here that will go in deep about this racism shit. Because to sit up there and say that racism doesn't exist, when I hear black people say that and white people say that, they're, I don't know. You have to really question them. Now, do I believe race play a part in every fucking thing? Nah, because I know LeBron James when he made that shit. What was that? The decision, where he said he was taking his talents to uh to Miami when he left Cleveland the first time to go to Miami, and he got a lot of criticism about how he had the press conference to announce that he was leaving. He was taking his talents to Miami, and LeBron said some of the criticism he got he felt was racially motivated. I didn't agree with LeBron on that. I think most of it was how he went about, how he basically had a press conference to basically tell Cleveland, "Hey, I'm leaving you guys," and going to Miami. Yeah, he went on to win two championships and whatnot, but I didn't think that was an issue of race. So I disagreed with LeBron about that. But as far as the whole thing with racism in boxing, all you got to do is look at my comment section, some of the comments I get made towards me. A lot of times, black people, especially I've seen the black dudes on here, we try to keep it boxing. You get a lot of these clowns, these non-black clowns that come on here. They the ones start talking about black hope and all that type of shit and start talking to monkey shit and all that. Cause most of the time I try to talk boxing, but they come talking the shit to me. And I'm the type of person, okay, you come sideways at me, I'm gonna come sideways at you. So to sit up there and say that boxing doesn't in boxing that racism doesn't exist, that's I'm sorry, that's not the truth. That's not the truth. For years, I've seen boxing show racial elements. Look what happened with Larry Holmes, Jerry Cooney. You know, Jerry Cooney knocks out, a past his prime, Ken Norton, and he gets 50% of the purse. He gets treated like he's the guy with the belt. You know, Larry Holmes was a good championship. He represented the heavyweight championship to the fullest. He was a, you know, he was. I'm not gonna say a class act, but he wasn't. He wasn't exactly a thug neither. But the way he was treated going into the Jerry Cooney fight was just horrible. See, I remember that fight. See, a lot of you guys on here, hey, don't remember that shit. Don't remember how Larry Holmes was treated going into the Jerry Cooney fight. Biggest act of racism I ever saw. Now I'm sure Blood probably, Blood, he probably remember this shit, and a couple of other OGs on here. If you remember how Larry Holmes was treated going into the Jerry Cooney fight, it was deplorable. So that was a clear act of racism. How Larry Holmes was treated, and a little bit towards the comments he made about Rocky Marciano. I think people went overboard how they went off on Larry Holmes when he said Rocky Marciano couldn't hold his jock strap and all that type of shit. I mean, people just overblew that. They went overboard with it. They made sure Larry Holmes never won a championship ever again because he clearly beat Michael Spinks in that rematch. Clearly beat him. Now, the first fight is debatable. Some people think Larry Holmes won. Some people think Michael Spinks won. Some people thought it should have been a draw. But yeah. So as far as saying that racism doesn't exist, man, I'm sorry. Now, like I said, I'll give Andre Ward a pass. because he in a position where I guess he don't want to get involved in that. He got a lot on the line and stuff. He have to think about his kids and family. You know, Andre Ward already is treated very, 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 very unfairly by people in the media and by a lot of these so-called boxing fans. You know, so if he don't feel comfortable talking about it, then I guess that's cool. Because I mean, to a certain degree, you can't expect every guy to speak on racism and shit. Some people just don't feel comfortable. Now, as long as he didn't flat out say like Stephen A. Smith did that racism doesn't exist anymore, telling a bold-faced fucking lie, he sort of just said that uh people need to be careful about, pointing out racism in certain aspects of boxing, which I disagree with him to a certain degree. And just to say that racism isn't a issue in certain aspects, I'll give you another example. Okay, look what's going on with Cam Newton. Goose Gossage talking about they don't need a whole bunch of Cam Newtons running around in baseball. And to sit up there and say, I don't want to hear that shit about sport, it has nothing to do with race, it's about sportsmanship, that's bullshit. Because Tom Brady celebrates, I've seen other quarterbacks that's not black celebrate and they don't say nothing to them. But then Cam Newton, they got an issue with Cam Newton. You know, Bill Romanowski called him a boy, which that was deplorable, very disrespectful. So let's not try to pretend that racism don't play a role in a lot of shit that go on in society. Look what's going on with the Donald Trump election. Look what's going on with that. Okay, we, you know, let's not try to pretend. Let's not be naive. Okay, but I'm just voicing my opinion about this shit. So, I listened to my homeboy Jeff's video about it. I listened to the interview that Andre Ward conducted with Fight Hype, and I'm sorry, I disagree because I go through, like I said, I've told stories about certain aspects of racism that I went through on my job, still go through. But I just, what I'm saying, I just keep my head up and keep pushing. So I can tell you some shit that I seen in Vegas. You know what I'm saying? When I was in the elevator going downstairs to the casino, you know what I'm saying? It's two white girls get in, you know what I'm saying? They start backing up towards, and putting their purses and their wallets behind their back, all pushed up against the back of the elevator, like I was gonna try to take their wallet, and probably I had more money than both of them bitches combined. But anyway, man, that's just my thoughts. You know what I'm saying? It's all good. Let me know what y'all think.